Hayden, a lot of NFL analysts around the league and around the nation, uh, they're not always 100% right, but I am. So I'm ready to bestow upon our audience the most 100% correct NFL record predictions during the preseason, so you can lock these bets in early when they actually have a lot of payout in them in Vegas. So just sit back, relax, get your popcorn ready, and listen to me just talk about some games here first, some of the best games of the season, and then I'll get into division rankings and how I have everyone seated for the playoffs.
Sounds good. I'm excited to hear from you. I can't wait. I've kind of been waiting for this for like almost 10 days now, so I'm excited to hear what you got.
All right. For week one, games to watch for me, I got two of them. First one, Kansas City against Cleveland at Kansas City. This is going to be a big one. Uh, Everyone's going to be looking at this. Cleveland couldn't squeak out the win against Kansas City in the playoffs, but they do it this time, and they win at Arrowhead to just kick off a great season for what the Browns are going to have. The Chiefs, it's not going to be a bad one either, but this is going to be the first time Mahomes ever loses in September. So it's going to shake him to his core here, and maybe it would affect him, but I don't think it's going to get to him that much. The second game in week one that I have is Jacksonville at Houston. Now, you may be thinking, well, why's that a game to talk about? That's not really going to be a great game. All these narratives about Houston that they're just going to be terrible, god awful. Uh, the the new Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, the can't miss quarterback prospect is going to be walking into a cupcake game, and everyone's going to expect him to win this one. Trevor Lawrence has only ever lost 4 games in his whole football career leading up to this point, and he's going to lose to the Texans at Houston. It's going to be a rough one for him, and I can only imagine what the national media headlines are going to be saying about him.
Now I have to ask you: is that to Davis Mills or Tyrod Taylor?
Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod's always playing in week one. Maybe he gets hurt at some point in that game and Davis Mills comes in. But
Okay, okay, I like it. I
uh,
like it.
anything you got to say on those games?
I mean, I have to say that is a surprising one to pick out week one. I knew you were going with Cleveland over Kansas City in that game, but Houston and Jacksonville, I would definitely have a tough time doing that. But I guess if you have Houston being this year's Jacksonville and losing the next 16, maybe it's possible. No, I'm kidding. A little higher on Houston than I think. I think Jacksonville's a tough team though. I would be surprised to see if they came out and did that. I think it's possible, but I would be surprised.
I just need Pat McAfee to have Trevor Lawrence on the show and say that he's gonna curb stomp the Texans, and then it's really gonna like seal the
Do
deal
you
for me.
do you remember that last year? We had the discussion before the game even started. It's like you go on even if you're not the person playing, you can't just be interviewing somebody and saying, "You guys are guaranteed to win this game. There's no way you lose this game." Like I don't know how. And even before the game happened for the Colts and Jaguars last year, week one, we're saying to each other, like, why would you say that? There's still a chance you lose. These are two NFL teams. You never can say that about any team in the NFL. And then they actually lost the game. So, I mean, it just shows, like, never say that a team's completely out of it. I'm sorry. A little bit of a tangent. What do you got for week
Yeah.
two?
Week two, I have one game, and that is the Dallas Cowboys going to the Los Angeles Chargers and beating them. I'm high on the Chargers, but I think this is a trap game for them early in the season. Lose it to the boys here. The Cowboys gonna have an explosive offense. That defense is going to be better. It's going to be a tough one for Brandon Staley to pull out at the start of his coaching tenure. And I don't think he really has it right now to win that early game. But it's going to be some knowledge that'll help him later in the season.
Well, like I told you, this game is going to be won on a last second, last play of the game, one-handed catch by C.D. Lamb on a Dak Prescott rollout. So, I mean, I'm with you on this one. I actually do. I actually really do like this one as an early season matchup. And I think it's close. I think it's a very close game. But yeah, two very exciting offenses. I'm really interested to see how this one goes. Absolutely ready for this game to be played week two. It'll be a good one.
Yeah, I couldn't pick a game out week three. That would be interesting for me, or that I could have a narrative around. So we're gonna go to week four here, and you talked about this one, and it'd be a crime for me not to talk about this game, and that would be Tampa Bay going to New England. Tom Brady taking on his old team, and nothing too crazy here. I'm not going to predict New England to win that one. I think it'd be kind of wild. Like if they win that game, my jaw's going to be on the floor watching it because that it is going to be a fantastic game if New England wins that. But it could also go the other way, and Tom Brady and the Buccaneers just roll over them. If Cam Newton is the starter, maybe Mac Jones puts up a fight. That would be an interesting game, though. If Mac Jones is the starter and it's Tom Brady just looking in a mirror.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I was gonna say I'm like we just talked about Cam Newton probably on yesterday's episode with talking about what our takeaways were from week 1 of the preseason and how we don't really know what to think of him. Like there's just elements of his game that we still really don't like. And even though he has that running ability, I feel like the passing consistency kind of just being improved by playing Mac Jones really would help that team. And yeah, I feel like honestly, I feel like I can say this: if Cam Newton plays that game 100% of the way through, I don't feel like based off what I just saw week 1 of the preseason, that the Patriots have a chance in that game. I have to hope that Mac Jones is playing in that game.
Yeah. And then my week 5 game that I have, I mean, I kind of set up a narrative here and I went back on it. And that would be the Chargers losing to the Browns and to the Ravens to then finally beat the Patriots. It's not going to happen, though, because the Chargers are going to win this game against the Browns. The one thing with the Ravens and the Patriots is they have a stronger passing game than the Browns do, I think. If Mac Jones is playing for the Patriots, I think that point in the season Mac Jones will be. Baker Mayfield has the receivers. Is Baker Mayfield that quarterback, though? I mean, we've just seen constant regression from him since his rookie season. The best Baker was 24-year-old Baker, and now we're going to be approaching 27-year-old Baker. Ugh. No one likes an old man like that. So I think the young blood Justin Herbert's going to get that dub.
I can see a world where this Chargers team is able to beat the Cleveland Browns. Your narrative that the Browns are a worse passing offense than the Ravens and the Patriots will be completely wrong this season. I'm sorry. I'm not going to buy into that at all. Not the Ravens. They're definitely going to be a better passing offense than the Ravens.
Yes, I will be wrong because Baker has fantastic receivers to throw to. But if you can catch Baker with a pass rush, gets him slipping, and he's making bad reads. If he can't get the ball to the receivers, it doesn't matter. I think with Mac Jones and Lamar, I mean, Lamar doesn't even have to get the ball to receivers to make plays happen. Mac Jones, I think if you show him pressure, he has the poise, and also he doesn't have the skill set to run, so he has to like have it in himself, like, I have to sit in here and I have to make a throw happen. Baker tricks himself into thinking that he's uber athletic and he can run away from pass rushes at times, and I think that might be the death of them in that game.
I still think it's funny, though. I think it's funny how you turned the topic, though, because like I you know how I've been saying the Chargers. I'm worried about the run. I'm worried about the run game against the Chargers, and you still picked 3 teams that I'm expecting to be really solid rushing offenses this season, but then you turned it into what can they do in the pass game against the Chargers, and I find that interesting. I mean, obviously they won't be able to run the ball 100% of those games. And the teams that throw the ball the best in the limited amount of times that they do throw the ball, at least in terms of the modern NFL, will probably do better against the Chargers. But I really don't know if I'm ready to say that the Browns are the worst of those 3.
Say what you will, my man. Say what you will. But like I said, this is 100% correct. Week 6, Pittsburgh home against the Seahawks. These are 2 teams that, in what I have in my final, and you'll find out, they're not going to be finishing cream of the crop, either of them. And this game, it won't turn into this way with how I have the games going, but the narrative of this game will be, whoever wins this game is turning their season around at this point. That, like, Pittsburgh, Seattle, whoever wins this one, they're turning it around. They're both having pretty bad seasons, but they're going to turn it around. And I have Seattle winning this one. I don't think Pittsburgh's that good. I'm not very high on them. Najee Harris can only take you so far. Ben Roethlisberger has just, I mean, he looks slimmer, but that's, I don't know how much pound loss translates to wins. So,
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head here. You're probably right. These teams won't be looking as good as they have in recent years. But I think I'll still be interested in it because I do think that they both have enough in terms of like what's on their roster, or if not roster, like coaching wise, that it could lift them to actually be able to potentially make the playoffs. But I absolutely agree with you that they're not going to be as good as people think they will be this season, and I'm interested to see how they both come together. But I have a feeling you'll be right, and if I'm not mistaken, this one's a primetime game. I'm not sure if you have
yeah,
that in front
it
of you,
is.
but yeah, that will also make this one an interesting matchup as well, and we'll get to have an episode talking about it, and I'll be ready for that one when it comes around.
Don't have anything for week 7 here, but for week 8, the one game I have is the Washington football team visiting Mile High here. Uh, Strong young defense going up against a strong young offense that's just missing its quarterback. And I think if Drew Lock plays anything like he did in that preseason game against the Vikings, he can light up that secondary. That's the weakest part of the football team, is their secondary. Everything else, like even the linebacking core, Ron Rivera did a good job, and I don't know who their general manager is. It might be Dan Snyder. They did a good job going out and getting linebackers to bring in there too. Jamin Davis, he's in there, but I don't know how far Benjamin St. Just and Landon Collins are going to really bring that team if you have Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, Noah Fant, a bunch of weapons just all over the place, and you have a quarterback that can consistently get the ball into their hands. That's a recipe for a great game. And maybe, I mean, if Drew Lock can play consistently well, their record may be better than what I think it is. But if he just turns it on for one game, I think this would be the game to do it. And it'd be a great game to just see a bunch of young guys going toe to toe with each other.
Yeah, I have to say, I think most of these so far, I can say that I've disagreed with you, but this one, I can see what you're saying here. I can see what's brewing here. Just the thing that I'm always giving the benefit of the doubt to with Washington is just that even though there probably is a decent amount of secondary help lacking on that team, the defensive line makes up for it so much that you really just need to block up front well. If you can block up front well, then it changes everything. But that D line is absolutely amazing and can terrorize everything and make the cornerback play not even matter. So we'll have to see how the Broncos protect up front, but absolutely they have the weapons to take advantage of those, I guess, lackluster corners and somewhat safeties.
Yeah. Week 9, the one game I want to mention is the Titans at the Rams. That's going to be a good one. That's your birthday game, isn't it?
I think so. I think that's our Sunday, November 7th game. Yeah, I think that's one that I'm excited for. It'll definitely be interesting because those are two teams that are like hovering right around the Super Bowl talk for me. But like honestly, neither of them are my favorite. Neither of them are my favorite for the Super Bowl. But like I think they could get there if they really had a good year. So yeah, those teams are really interesting ones for me. And I'm wondering who you're gonna go with here.
Yeah. Usually I'd go with home field advantage here. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going home field advantage here, and I'm giving the Rams the win here against the Titans. The one knock that I would give, like head to head, just looking at these teams, the Rams have a little bit more depth than the Titans do, which is funny to say because I think before this season, really going in depth and looking at the Titans roster, the Rams, like their philosophy for building the team is it does not matter who we have behind the superstars. All that matters is we have these superstars. And the Titans, I'd never really associated that philosophy with them, but looking at it, it's like, yeah, they built their team the exact same way.
They're into it.
Doesn't
even
matter.
heavier.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who we have behind these guys as long as we have these guys. And I think Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald on the defense just does more damage than Bud Dupree and Jackrabbit, or whoever you want to consider their top edge rusher talent, their top corner. So
Yeah, I, I think I understand where you're coming from. I don't think it's the top guys being better for the Rams. I think it's the depth. I think it is all
mhm.
up to the depth of the Rams. Just like kind of being like, well, we've got both teams have a lot of top end talent, like really at the top of their roster, like all the way up as close to it as you can be. And yeah, just behind that, the Rams have more depth than the Titans, along with the fact that them being the home team in this, it really does help because we think these teams are pretty evenly matched, and I would never say that taking the home team in a close matchup is a bad pick.
Yeah. Week 10 here, you know what this game's going to be. That's going to be Tampa Bay at Washington. Rematch the playoffs here. You haven't been on board with this one. I think the football team's going to win this one. I really do. The one thing that held the football team back from beating the Buccaneers in the playoffs last year, or last season, was the receivers not willing to catch Taylor Heineke's balls. They have Ryan Fitzpatrick who can put balls, or he plays quarterback just like Taylor Heineke, takes more risks, and he's a little less athletic. And they just overloaded the receiving room, put a lot of good talent in there, and I think with that, that results in a win for them. The defenses are both strong, and I think just having a guy like Fitzy who takes more risks, Brady doesn't take risks. And it's funny because he's in the no risk it, no biscuit offense. Ryan Fitzpatrick would thrive with Bruce Arians. Uh, but
Or look like
just
Jameis Winston.
it would look like James Winston. But with that's the thing. James Winston had awesome games. I think just like I said with Drew Lock, if there's one game where Fitzy really turns it on and plays out of his mind, it would be this one.
Okay. I'm I'm not completely off on that one. I did. I think I actually, when we went through the Bucks, I think this was one of the games that I said they could potentially lose because I didn't pick any straight up losses for the Bucks in that. 4 toss ups for them, I think, which results in 2 of those being losses. And I think this was one of the games that I said potentially they could drop. But yeah, I'm still not ready to pick the Bucks straight up in this one. Or sorry, the football team straight up against the Bucks. Still not ready to pick the football, but I can see it happening.
Hey man, it is what it is. You want to be wrong, that's fine. Don't listen to me. Week 11, don't really have a game to highlight there. Week 12 though, and this also don't have a week 13 game here, so I'll just link these to each other with each other since week 13 is the one stopgap between them, and that would be the Browns playing the Ravens here. Those 2 games going to be big games to watch. I know we talked about it, and the second one probably won't get flexed into prime time because of the first one being in prime time. But that's going to be who wins the division, basically. That's what these 2 games are going to decide. And Cleveland is hoping to split them. And I don't think they win this first one. They have one hump to get over, and that's Baltimore. They got over the hump of Pittsburgh last year, beating them in the playoffs. They have one more to get over, and it's Baltimore, and I don't think they beat them the first time. Second time, though, I think they split it with them. And they're crossing their fingers and hoping that whatever math the NFL does for tiebreakers or hope how these games shake out, that's how it determines who's going to be number 1 in this division, because I don't see either of them losing another game after those 2. After they split, I don't see them losing another game.
Yeah, and that's exactly how mine came out. And if you remember, it just came down to, for them, because of how everything fell, it literally would just be the team with the better point differential. So that it would be very interesting to see how that comes out at the end of the season. See how much they can beat their crappier opponents by to get an advantage, or potentially see what game those 2 teams drop that we didn't expect them to drop that actually knocks them into that 2 spot in the division.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe, hey, maybe the Bengals or Steelers are going wild at this point, and it's just way closer than either of us expect. But
Yeah.
I'm fully on board with the 2-dog race and excited to see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm. Don't have a game for week 15 to talk about, but I got 2 in week 16. First one, Seattle going to Chicago.
Ooh.
This is going to be a big one because I think at this point in the season, how I have it, close in the playoff race for these two fighting for the 7th spot. Whoever wins this one probably going to lock it in here, but it's not going to be like double-digit wins for either of them. It's going to be who just squeaks into the playoffs. And Chicago is the away team here, but I think just with how poor I've seen Seattle's defense play in the preseason and how poor I'm predicting them to be, I think Justin Fields picks them apart. Hopefully he's starting. I'm expecting him to be starting at this point in the season for them. Even with Andy Dalton here too, I think Andy Dalton could be his conservative self and still find a way to beat this team. Uh, Not really much to worry about from them besides Jamal Adams, who he just got paid, but I don't really think he's that much of a factor to worry about in pass coverage. The biggest factor in pass coverage that you have to worry about for the Seahawks is Wag Daddy, and that's just weird to say for a linebacker. Like, he is the biggest guy to worry about in the entire secondary.
Since I'm sorry, I have to cut you here for a second. We should probably mention that we call Bobby Wagner Wag Daddy here because I don't think we've ever actually mentioned that, and now you've done it in 2 episodes consecutively. So yes, that's who he's referring to when he says that.
Everyone knows Wag Daddy. But that's the first game that I have, and I have Chicago taking that one to get this win here and lock themselves into the playoffs, really. And then not lock themselves in, but really secure themselves over all these other NFC teams. And the second game I have is a game that would have been way better if it was earlier in the season.
Oh, yeah.
And that is the Jags taking on the Jets at New York. It would have been such a better game if it was like a week 3 or a week 4 matchup, but there is still something to talk about this. Both of these teams' records are the same for me at this point. And I have both of these teams not winning another game after this one. So, in my mind, like, how I'm looking at the narrative for this is really who's finishing with 5, who's finishing with 4. Who's the better quarterback out of the first 2 taken? And I have the Jags winning this one. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to beat out Zach Wilson head to head, even on his home turf, to show, yeah, Zach, I won 5. Just really stick it to him there. I'm getting my team a worst draft pick.
That's funny. I'm glad. Man, I hate that came so late in the season. I mean, we're both on the same page with that. But yeah, that'll be a fun game to watch, even if it doesn't have any sort of later season implications. It'll just be nice to have those guys go up head to head against each other. And I think you're right. I think Jacksonville will win that game.
Mm-hmm. And my Week 17 game is going to be Dallas home against Arizona.
Ooh, wow, that's a Week 17 game. Wow, that's late in the year.
It's a Week 17 game. Dallas at this point, for me, they're going to be locked in to the playoffs, but they still have something to lose. If they lose out these last 2 games, they could fall to the 7th spot and not keep that 6. I think they lose this one against the Cardinals here, and really just spook the fans here. Like, oh no, well, what is happening? Is this team just gonna fall apart before they get into the playoffs and just stumble in there? So I have them losing to the Cardinals. Cardinals get something to hang their hat on before they go into next season with their retirement home that they have. Cliff Kingsbury maybe gets to keep his job because of that one. I don't know. Going through this, I just had something in my gut, like, the Cardinals are going to find a way to win this one. It's just such a Cardinals game to win. Like, the Cowboys are in the playoffs. Nothing really to worry about here. Like, and then stuff to worry about because they can lose their seeding. They can get a worse seeding, but they just don't do what they have to do against the Cardinals.
Okay. That's interesting because at first I thought you were going to say that they get knocked out of the playoffs by losing to the Cardinals here, but actually just knocking them down seeding. I mean, yeah, I definitely think your storyline's on the right track with these 2 teams definitely being capable enough of like having like things go the complete opposite way that we would expect them to later in the season. But yeah, that's really interesting. Now I'm really excited to see how this all falls out, but even more so excited for your Week 18 to tell me about what are the important matchups for you Week 18.
In my last Week 17 game, I have an extra one here. My last one is going to be Rams at Ravens. This one's going to be huge because at this point right now, the Niners in Week 16 lost their first game against the Titans. And I didn't mention that, didn't really think it was important because this one is the important for the NFC West. The Rams have 2 losses heading into this, and they have a game against the Rams, Week 18. Or the Rams have a game against the Niners. Sorry. They have a game against the Niners Week 18, and if they win that one, then they have a chance, or they do end up winning the crown for the NFC West. But they're looking too far ahead. They're not looking at what's in front of them, and they end up losing to the Ravens, getting them their 3rd loss of the season. So the Niners could just bench their starters Week 18. They don't have to worry about the Rams. Locks them into the 5 seed here, which, I mean, would have been a great Week 18 game to watch them play. But it's just going to be Matt Stafford dueling it out with backups, or backups going against backups. Yeah, or probably because there's going to be no point.
Yeah, that's that kind of stinks because I wanted to hype this game up for the end of the year, hoping that it would be a great end of the year matchup. But at this point, I am planning on attending that Rams Ravens game. So if I get there and that's an exciting game, I can also be happy for that. I'm expecting that to be a good one as well. The Rams really are going to be an interesting team to watch later in the season, and actually I do feel like we have a fairly decent amount of late season games that are still very intriguing. So I'm excited for all sorts of them.
Yeah. That concludes all my games that I find interesting here. So let's just hop right into the divisions and talk about them.
Ready to hear this.
So, let's start with our division, the AFC East. I have the Bills going 14-3, 6-0 in the division. The Patriots going 11-6, 4-2 in the division. The Miami Dolphins going 9-8, 1-5 in the division, and the New York Jets going 4-13, 1-5 in the division. What do you think on that?
Yeah, that's the order I have. Hearing Miami go 1-5 in the division is kind of interesting to hear, just because I didn't put up, I guess, what I did in the division, but actually I may have made Miami 1-5 in the division and ours as well. So yeah, same order for us. This is a division that we know well, and I feel like we probably have a better idea than a lot of other people do. And I think when other people that don't follow the AFC East as closely see how this thing shakes out by the end of the year, they may be surprised.
Is the AFC East the least followed division in football?
Well, you had the dynasty in our division for so long.
They didn't follow the division. They just followed the Patriots, though. That's the thing.
I know, but like at this point in time, is it just thinking about the other teams around the league? Maybe the NFC South. That could be kind of there, because I feel like the Panthers and Falcons don't have too much going for them. That's keeping people really invested, or even the Buccaneers like that consistently. So maybe them, but yeah, we're probably the smallest division, honestly. Yeah.
All right. AFC North next. Baltimore, 15-2, 5-1 in the division. Cleveland, 15-2, 5-1 in the division. What this came down to, the tiebreaker to put Baltimore over Cleveland here. Baltimore's losses were to Kansas City and Cleveland. Cleveland's losses were to the Chargers and Baltimore. And how the records shake out, since Kansas City finished with a better record than what the Chargers finished with, Cleveland gets the 5 seed, the Ravens get the 2 seed.
Really?
Yeah, and rounding out the division, I got the Cincinnati Bengals going 4-13, 1-5 in the division, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, I said 4-13, and the Pittsburgh Steelers going 3-14, 1-5 in the division. I'm holding strong to that.
Oh man, I still have trouble seeing that with Pittsburgh. I didn't know that So do they both play the entire AFC West, or do they each
Yep,
only play?
I believe they both play they both play the entire AFC West.
So that's interesting. Oh man, I just tiebreakers are so confusing sometimes.
Mm,
But no matter what the tiebreaker is, I feel like you're on the right track. Baltimore and Cleveland, it's gonna come down to a tiebreaker, so it'll be interesting to see what that is. And then once again, even though I agreed with you, kind of with where the Bengals and Steelers sit, I'm still having trouble seeing the Steelers only win that many games. Even though I said that as well, I don't know how they're gonna lose that many games. But all right, yeah, on the same
uh,
page.
AFC West next. I have Kansas City going 15-2, 5-1 in the division. I have the LA Chargers next going 12-5, 4-2 in the division. The Denver Broncos going 6-11, 1-5 in the division, and the Las Vegas Raiders going 5-12, 2-4 in the division. So the Chiefs' one loss in the division comes against the Raiders.
Man, that's tough to hear. Just be well. It's interesting. Once again, I think we're about the same order for these teams, so I'm not disagreeing too much. I just had the Chiefs. I feel like the Chiefs are going to drop a few more games this year. That's the main difference from us in this year's schedule. I feel like they've got a lot of tough matchups this year, and it's going to be tough to win all of them. So I feel like they could drop 3 or 4 games instead of 2, but they're still a really good team. So they're going to be plenty high in the. They're going to be in the AFC playoff picture, absolutely.
Yeah. And then rounding out the AFC with the South, I got the Titans going 14-3, 5-1 in the division. The Colts going 5-12, 3-3 in the division. The Jags going 5-12, 2-4 in the division, and the Texans going 3-14, 2-4 in the division.
Okay. Who did the Titans lose to in the division? Do you
They
remember
lost
off the
to the
top?
Colts.
Okay, you gave the Colts one. All right. Seems fair
Uh,
enough.
so the seeding for the AFC will be the Chiefs 1, Ravens 2, Titans 3, Bills 4, Browns 5, Chargers 6, Patriots 7.
Yeah, that's completely different from how my landscape got put out. So it'll be yeah, you've got a completely different template for me for what the AFC is doing. But I don't think it's anything ridiculous. I think that absolutely could happen. I mean, a few games here, a few games there. Those things move around. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
All right. And now moving on to the NFC, the NFC East. Washington going 12-5, 5-1 in the division. The Cowboys 11-6, 5-1 in the division. The Giants 2-15, 1-5 in the division. And the Philadelphia Eagles 1-16, 1-5 in the division.
I know you made this a few days ago, but did anything you saw from the Eagles the other day maybe feel like you're hurting them a little too much?
I don't think so. Just their schedule's rough, man. Their schedule is rough. Like if you asked me like without looking at their schedule, what I think the Eagles would go, I'd probably give them like 5 wins off the top of my head without looking at their schedule. But if you look at who they're playing, it is tough to give them that many wins.
Like the Raiders.
I don't think the Raiders are that incompetent though.
But okay, but listen, you're saying if you look at their schedule, I mean, how many
No,
teams?
yeah, I understand.
How many
Like,
teams are you gonna look at against the Eagles and say, okay, this team is worse than the
all right,
Eagles?
so they played the
It's
Giants. They played the
probably
Giants
only, like,
twice. They played the Giants twice. The Jets once. I don't think Denver's bad enough to lose to them. They played the Lions and they played the Raiders, and I just don't think I can give the Lions a loss there, especially when it's home for the Lions. The Raiders game is also at Vegas. The Jets game is at New York. It's like all their
Okay.
games that are against terrible team. Like I don't know why I put air quotes around that. All their games that are against terrible teams, like teams that are as bad as them, are at that team's stadium.
Okay, fair enough, I guess. I'm having trouble thinking that they'll only win one game. I feel like they got to win more than that, and the Giants too. I think they're a little bit. I think they're a little bit better than that. I can see Washington and Dallas being around those marks, though. You're a little higher on Dallas than I am, but I'm actually interested that you didn't highlight what I think is either a Week 15 or Week 16 game where Washington goes to Dallas. I would have thought that that would have been kind of important in terms of this seeding. I'm just wondering how that played out because you said they both went 5-1 in the division. So I'm wondering how those games fell. Did they split between each other?
Uh, yeah, they ended up splitting with each other, and how that worked is, yeah, that Arizona game that I talked about carries more weight because that is what stops the. I don't know how the math would end up shaking out. I think Washington would still end up with the one spot in the division if they both went 12-5. Uh,
Yeah,
but
but the Arizona game holds them back. I gotcha.
yeah, the Arizona game pulls them back one. Now to the NFC North. I have the Packers going 11-6, 5-1 in the division. That one loss coming to the Bears. I have the Bears going 9-8, 4-2 in the division. The Minnesota Vikings going 5-12, 2-4 in the division, and the Detroit Lions going 3-14, 1-5 in the division. Now, after seeing how Dan Campbell coached in that preseason game, I would like if he carries that in, I might have to scrap all this. Just like he throws me for such a loop with that. No, but they do play some bad teams, and I gave them the edge in this because I was like, I like Dan Campbell's coaching, and I think they have better quarterback talent than all these other cruddy teams. But I mean, if Dan Campbell isn't going to call timeouts on game-winning drives, then I mean,
Yeah, no, it was not a good showing. But I mean, 3-14. I don't think that's much of the conversation here in this division. Minnesota only winning 5 games. Yeah, a little bit of trouble with that. I feel like they're
yeah, and I had
minimum.
trouble with them going to the Super Bowl for you.
Listen. I told you it was perfectly with how the schedule. It's just how things play out sometimes. But I feel like their floor's got to be like 7 wins. I mean, unless they're injury ravaged again. But I feel like there's enough talent on that roster. They got to win 7 games, at the bare minimum. And then in terms of Chicago and Green Bay at the top of the division, I have no problem with that. The funny thing is that you have Green Bay at 11-6. I had them at 9-8. Two games. I mean, maybe you think 2 games is a lot. It's a 2-game flip for us, and it really isn't that far apart. And yet, like where they're seated for each of us is completely different. Because at 9-8 for me, with where I was before, like I said, I'm leaning towards switching this now, but I'll probably update that on our Instagram. Go check out our Instagram if you haven't. Follow us there for any updates. But at 9-8 for me, they missed out on the playoffs before, and at 11-6 for you, I'm not sure where they're going to fall in the seeding, but they're winning the division obviously, so they're at least the 4 seed, which is interesting.
Yeah. For the NFC West, I have the Niners winning the division at 15-2, 5-1 in the division. I have the Rams coming in second with a 14-3 record, 5-1 in the division. I have Seattle going 8-9, 1-5 in the division, and Arizona going 6-11, 1-5 in the division.
Okay. Yeah. I can't argue with that either. I really think we're on the same page there. That's about what I'd say.
And with that, with this next division, it'll set the record for most 15-2 teams in an NFL season.
Yeah, that's.
The first 15-2 team would set the record, but this will really set the record. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers also end up going 15-2, 5-1 in their division. The Saints go 7-10, 3-3 in the division. The Atlanta Falcons go 7-10, 2-4 in the division, and the Carolina Panthers go 6-11, 2-4 in the division.
Okay, that feels. What did you say the Saints win total was?
7-10.
Ooh, 7-10. Okay, yeah, not too far off of me, but yeah, that feels about right actually. Yeah, I guess that division's not too surprising to me. How did the playoffs shake out now? Who's on the outside looking in? Who's in? What's up?
So, how the playoffs shake out. The 49ers get the 1 seed because the 49ers' losses were against the Titans and against the Rams. And both of the Buccaneers' losses were teams in the NFC. So they have a better... the Niners have a better conference record, so they get the 1 seed. Buccaneers get the 2, football team gets the 3, Packers get the 4, Dallas gets the 6th, and
5.
I skipped 5. Rams get the 5, Dallas gets the 6th, and Chicago gets the 7th seed.
Okay. Man, this will make for an interesting playoffs. Like I said, it's just teams are so close together. It's like, oh man. And then playoff seeding, you got the mess of like the Rams being significantly better than the Packers, and the Packers still having to deal with the Rams. Oh, and that's the first matchup of your postseason, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh boy, that's an interesting one there. Well, I'm excited to hear from you for your postseason. I'm glad I got to hear about your regular season prediction. I don't feel like there's anything, just because we've talked so much this offseason, probably more than we ever have about football. I don't feel like there's anything too shocking. I knew about how you felt about all your teams. Probably the biggest single game surprise was the Texans beating the Jags week 1, so that's a good opening play. I'm ready. I'm ready for your playoffs. That's really where I'm more interested in, to see how that shakes out. So if you've watched this far, make sure to come back to the channel tomorrow. If not, click on the channel, see if the video's up now, and check out Jake's playoff predictions that are based off all these. So if that's it, are you all set?
Yeah, the playoff predictions will also be 100% right, so remember that. And with that, I think we can cut this here.